Sorry, I cannot hear your voice.
I said, can I ask a question before we start
Sure,
with the
go ahead.
implementation? Okay, so I want to ask about the outsourcing services. So for example, if a company is outsourcing, let's say the backup services, so does it require the company to comply with the controls in the NXA, or is it the case that it is not applicable, or an ISO auditor does not care about outsourcing or on-premise implementation? So how to deal with outsource?
This is an excellent question. Okay, I will tell you. You know, this question, it's a little bit complicated. Why? In IT, generally, we are using, or we are saying, the customer is owning the data. Customer is owning the data. Then even if you are assigned this service for a third party, but by the end of the day, you are responsible for it. And let me ask you another question. I will answer your question with another question. What will happen? Suppose that this data, it's not backed up properly by the third party, and it may be leaked or whatever. Who will face the problems? Is it the third party or the organization itself?
The organization itself, of course.
Right, the organization itself. When in this situation, the organization, it should be responsible to make sure that the vendor is doing the exercise properly. Do you remember in clause number 8, in clause number 8 operations, when we said that if you have any outsourcing services, you have to define what are the requirements and make sure that everything is running fine. Then, if you defined your backup policy, recovery, and you have an agreement with the vendor and all the exercises, you do it in a proper way, but by the end of the day, the vendor, they did not confirm with their part of the contract, then this means that you are not responsible for it. Then this means that it will be responsibility of the vendor. But you have to make sure that you defined all the requirements, you had an NDA agreement, you are monitoring the outsourcing partners, and make sure that we are doing the exercise in a proper way by testing or by inspection or by auditing or whatever the way which you want to do it. Okay, did I answer your question?
So basically what the ISO auditor will look for is that we have contract and NDA for the outsourced services, and we are auditing them.
Yes, you are right.
Thank
you. are right. This is your rule. Your rule that you must have a policy for the backup, you must have a recovery test, you must have the NDA, all these steps. Then after that, what is going on the other side, this will be their responsibility. Okay, you are most welcome. Now we want to implement the ISO 27001 clauses and the controls in a company. In module number 2, we will cover an overview about a virtual company called XYZ company. What is XYZ company? We will go through the XYZ company overview. What is the XYZ company? What is the vision of the company? What is the mission of the company? What is the goals and objectives? And what is the company structure? The company overview, and this is very important, please start to concentrate, and even I prefer to have a paper next to you when you take some notes, because now all this information are critical. This information are critical. XYZ company, it's based in Saudi Arabia. Great. And we are specialized in developing the software. We are specializing in developing on-shelf applications and customized applications. This means that we have two types of services. We have customized applications. It may be financial application, it may be HR application, whatever the type of the application. Or we can go to any company and we ask them to develop some applications with companies based on their needs. We have 4 branches: Riyadh, Jeddah, Dammam, Jubail. And we have another office in India. Okay? Riyadh, it is the head office. Riyadh is the head office. Then this company, it's a software company developing applications. We have 4 branches. It is based in Saudi Arabia. Okay. XY, the company won a tender. They won a tender to develop software packages for an enterprise customer in Saudi Arabia. Okay, they already won this tender, but there was a bad surprise for them that they don't know that the customer mandates that the partner or vendor dealing with them, he should be ISO 2701 certified. If you are not certified, you will not be able to exchange data with us. Especially now you will make development for applications, codes, and so on, when to allow data exchange between their networks. What is our target? This is our target. This is our objective in our workshop, to help XYZ company to implement ISO 27001 and make them ready for the certification process. Okay, then this is the scenario which we will start to implement ISO in this company. The company, they want the tender, they want to certify against the ISO. Okay, what is the vision? You remember in clause number 4, and I will try to write these clauses to you on a paper and send it over the WhatsApp. Then I want you to keep these clauses beside you, or at least on your notebook or whatever, any device you are attending the training. Then if you will say, okay, I want you to open clause number 4, subclause 4.1, then you know exactly where to go, because I'm quite sure that you are not memorize the clauses now. I will try to write it and send it to you, or to send you some documents over the internet, or share it with you through the WhatsApp, then you can download it. Anyway, in clause number 4, if you can remember, which it was called the organization context. We said that we have to understand the organization context. And the organization context, it has what? We have to understand the internal and external factors affecting the business. And we have to understand the stakeholders and their requirements and expectations. And we have to understand the internal and external factors affecting the business, and so on. Then it's very important to understand the vision and the mission and all these things. Although this is not our objective in this training, but it's very important that you understand it. What is the difference between mission and vision? What is the difference between mission and vision?
Vision is the way you do your mission.
No, vision, this is
A mission is like something you do daily, but
okay, go ahead.
Okay, the mission is something you do daily, procedures or mission, daily mission, maybe monthly mission. But the vision is where your organization want to be like after a year, after 5 years, and so on.
Excellent. This is the right definition. Thank you. Vision, where you want to be after 5 years or 10 years, or what is your objective in the future? Maybe strategic after 5 minutes, 10 minutes, after 10 years, 20 years, whatever. Then this is a vision. I want to reach to this point when I have to work very hard until I reach for it. But the mission, this is what you are doing right now. What you are doing right now. Let's apply this definition to XYZ company. Vision become the leaders in digital transformation market. Digital transformation market, this it's new in Saudi Arabia, and we want to be leaders in the digital transformation market. Okay, what is their vision, mission? Their mission is develop and standard approach and guidance and tools that help decrease the failure rates of software projects. We want to have a standard approach to minimize the failure of software projects. How we can achieve this? By combining the consultancy services and expecting and the best practices. The best practices. Then currently, we must have some processes for development and for project management, which it will minimize the software project failures by integrating the experience, their experience in the market and the best practices. These are the mission and the vision. As you'll see in the next slide, that we will take this mission and vision and we will analyze it in detailed information. But now we are going through the slides. Okay, what is our goals and objectives? I will give you 2 minutes. I will be in silent mode for 2 minutes to read the objectives and concentrate. I want you to read it very well and understand it, because this is what we will build all the workshop later. Then please go through it in details and understand it very well. I will give you 2 minutes in a silent mode, then you will be able to concentrate.
حارس أنا مالك. عايشة موجودة عشان
المايك يا جماعة الخير، المايك.
من فضلكم اعملوا ميوت على المايكس بتاعتكم. Okay. I hope that you have enough time to go through the goals and objectives. These goals and objectives, it will be considered as our base for implementing the ISO, as you will see later. This is very important when you will go to any company and you have to ask them about the goals, missions, objectives, visions, and so on. Then you will be able to understand a lot of information, which will be very helpful, and it will communicate. It will be helping in understanding the or implementing, I mean, the ISO. Okay. What next? What information do we have next for the company XYZ? The company structure. In the company structure, we have the CEO, as you can see here. And under the CEO, we have 4 C-level managers, financial manager, and HR manager, and sales manager. We have also technical manager. Under the technical manager, we have 3 different departments. You have the systems and infrastructure manager, you have service desk manager, you have developer manager. And of course, under these managers, you will find under the system engineers, the service desk representatives, you will find developers. Under the sales department, you will find the sales representatives. Under the HR, you will find the HR representatives. And finally, under financial manager, you will find the accountants. This is the company structure. This is a company structure which we received from the customer when we went to them and we asked to help them in implementing the ISO. Okay, we finished module number 2. I think module number 2 compensates module number 1. We feel that we finished 2 modules. Yeah. Do you have any questions regarding module 2 before going further in implementing the ISO steps? Something it's not clear before. It's very important to understand the organization and the company before starting the process of the organization context. No questions? Okay, let's open module number 3. Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Module number 3. Okay, great. Okay, let's start our workshop, our trip, our journey in implementing the ISO 27001. Just I want you to understand how the workshop approach, how we will go through the phases of the implementation. First phase we will discuss, it will be the definition of the requirements. What is the ISO requirements? This phase number 1. Phase number 2, to understand these requirements. Phase number 3, information conclusion. We have to start to conclude some information from the organization or the company which we want to implement the ISO in it. Phase number 4, we have to implement the ISO in the XYZ company. How we can implement the ISO in the XYZ company. And finally, what will be the documentation? As I explained before, in ISO, we have mandatory documentation and non-mandatory documentation. It's very important to make sure that the mandatory documentation are available when the the inspector, he come for checking. Then, as a quick recap, we will discuss the requirements, understand the requirements of the ISO 27001. We conclude information from the environment we have to implement it, and then we have to prepare the documentation. Any questions regarding the approach? It's very important because it will be repeated in all our modules. You will find, or you will see this slide in all our next 8 modules. Any questions about the approach? Okay. Is it the Maghrib prayer time now in Medina or not yet?
3 more minutes.
Not yet.
How many minutes do we have?
3 more minutes.
3 more minutes. Okay. Okay. Well, I think we can start for these 3 minutes because I don't want to waste the time. Then we can stop. Then please stop me at the time of the prayer because sometimes I forget. Okay. Then now let's start module number 3. And it will cover the context of the organization. And as you can remember, we mentioned that the context is the circumstances of the company, which it will control the company in doing business in the market. What are the ISO 27001 requirements? It will be clause number 4, if you can remember, clause number 4. And we mentioned that in clause number 4, we have 4 sub-clauses. Number 1, understand the organization and its context. Understand the needs and expectations of interested parties, or in other words, we can call the stakeholders. Determine the scope of the Information Security Management System, the ISMS, why your company want to implement ISMS. The scope, it must be very clear. And finally, you must have the ISMS implementation in your company. Of course, how I will have the ISO 27001 check if I don't have the ISMS already installed. And by the way, a condition, as a mandatory condition for ISO 27001, that you must have at least the ISMS to be implemented 3 months before the external audit, and you at least have 1 single internal audit and 1 single management review. These are the conditions, that you have the ISMS installed 3 months before the external or inspection audit, and at least 1 internal audit is done for the ISMS processes and 1 management review. If we want to understand the ISO 27001 requirements, we will go very quickly for it. But sub-clause 4.1, you have to understand, as we mentioned, what are the organization's mission, goals, values, objectives, what are the organization processes, services, business requirements, what are the internal factors affecting the organization, the external factors affecting organizations, who are your stakeholders, and what are their expectations from the ISMS implementation, and how this will affect the ISMS, and what are the main objectives of the ISMS implementation in your company. And here, as a quick reminder for you, what is the context? The definition of context of the organization, as we mentioned before, it is a business environment, or it's a combination between internal and external factors that affect an organization approach for services or doing business, and their effect on the stakeholders and partners. Okay. I think I have to stop here before for prayer, and we will have 10 minutes when we can start for understanding the information conclusion. Okay, thank you. Okay. In module number 3, we will help the XYZ company to implement the ISO 27001, and it will cover the first clause in the ISO, which is clause number 4, for understanding the context of the organization. And if you remembered in module number 2, we highlight some important information. What are this information? What is the mission of the company, vision, objectives, goals, and the structure. Now, if we want to start to make analyze for all this information and understand this organization or XYZ company very well, what do we have to do? Number one, we have to understand the organization context. How we can understand the organization context? We can use SWOT analysis. SWOT analysis, it can help us to understand the organization context. Do you know what is SWOT analysis?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
What is SWOT analysis? You did not know, you did not hear about SWOT analysis before?
Yes, it's the table with the 4 blocks that highlight the strength and the weaknesses, and I forgot about the other. And threats and opportunities.
Yes. This is usually an analysis. We are using to understand the organization and if they want to develop objectives, goals for the year or strategic or the operational or tactical objectives, then we have to study these 4 important factors. What are the strengths of the company? Then we have to concentrate on these strengths and we have to push it and enlarge its effect in the company. What are the weaknesses? Then we will be able to solve it and fix this weakness. What are the opportunities? When we can exploit these opportunities and we can utilize. And finally, what are the threats which we are faced then to resolve it and to prepare our controls to resolve them. This analysis, it will help very well in understanding the organization context. Then this is one of the practical methods now in implementing ISO 27001. What else? We have to understand the mission, goals, and objectives. It's very important to understand why. Why do we want to understand the mission, goals, and objectives? And please, I need your concentration because now what we are saying now is very important. These are the real steps which we will utilize to implement the ISO. Now the missions and objectives and the goals, it will help in what? It will help in understanding the criticality of the organization's assets. It will help in understanding the criticality of organization assets. First of all, we will understand what are the assets and what is the criticality of these assets for the organizations and what is the importance of the ISMS in protecting these assets. It's very important. When we understand the mission, what the company is doing now, what are their objectives and goals, then we will be able to understand what are the assets which are mandatory and which are helping the organization to achieve these goals and objectives. And of course, not all the assets we have the same value. Some of them they are critical for the operation, some of them are intermediate, some of them are medium, some others are low, and so on. Classification of assets, it will be very important because based on the classification of assets, the controls, security controls which you have to implement, it should be more restrictive for the assets which has a critical effect on the organization rather than the assets which have low priority for the organization. Also, in some situation, we may face some budget problems. Then if we face some budget problem, then the management it will say, okay, we can postpone the implementation of the security controls for the next year budget. Then this means that we can implement the critical assets controls, and we can postpone the low priority assets controls or the medium assets controls into the next year. But it will be very important to define the priority when we can able to concentrate on its security and to implement its controls as soon as possible because it will be mandatory and it will affect the company in the achieving its goals and objectives. Also, you remember when we explained that values, the company and the values. What is the value? Value, this is the organization believes. Values are the organization believes. What the organization believe. For example, a company believe that we have to help the country or the city, their city to educate the new generation and create a manpower which it will be source of the experience within 10 years from current after their graduation, or whatever these beliefs. But these beliefs, it will be very important. Why? Because this, it will affect their attitudes and it will affect the risk assessment and the risk acceptance criteria. If you can remember when we said the risk acceptance criteria, because risk acceptance criteria, we have a specific value or we have a risk level, and this risk level which it will be considered acceptable for the company. We say that the risk level which is equal, for example, to, this means that you are losing 10,000 K if this risk happens. Then the management will say, okay, we can accommodate this risk, and there is no need to waste our resources and budget in the any risk control. Then it depends upon the values of the company. If the company is caring about its reputation, about its shape in the market and all this stuff, then you will find that the risk acceptance criteria is very high. It's very high. We don't want to give any chance to lose their reputation or their market share or whatever. But if it's a small company and we are not concentrating too much about their names and we want to create some money and revenue, then they may accept high risk. As we explained yesterday, the company which they will change their partner or the vendor which provide them with the PCs because they will save 15% of the overall cost. Although the new company is new in the market and we are not sure that it will be able to fulfill their needs and requirements on time, but this is a risk and we want to take it because on the other hand, they will save 15% of the cost. Okay. Another point, you will find that we understand organization, processes, and activities. Why? Why do we need this? Now, what we are explaining, what are the information which we have to conclude? We did not apply this information on XYZ company, but now I am trying to telling you and explain to you what is our methodology to perform these requirements for the 27001. Number one, we said we have to make the SWOT analysis. Number two, we said that we have to understand the assets and its criticality for the operations. We have to understand the organization values and how the management think about their image in the market. Then this, it will affect the risk assessment or in general risk appetite and risk management. Also, we have to understand the processes, the activities and services, because this, it will help us to understand what? The assets and the asset value and who is the asset owner and what is the asset criticality. Look here, now because it's the same company, then when we discuss this point and the organization context and the mission, you will find that all of them, they will lead us to the same point, that we want to understand the assets criticality for operations. These are the most important things which we want to understand. Because in some situation, when you go to the company, we don't understand what is the meaning of asset. Then in this case, you have to discover the assets yourself. And you have to define what are the primary assets and supporting assets. By the way, primary assets and supporting assets, this is a definition by ISO 27001. This is a definition by ISO 27001. They classify the assets into two classifications: primary assets and supporting assets. Assets we consider it as tangible and intangible. Primary assets, it will be the processes, activities, manufacturing processes, manufacturing activities, and so on. Supporting assets, it will be any other assets which it will help to achieve or the primary assets. It can be network, it can be hardware, software, tool, facilities, whatever, anything. And usually, the primary assets, it will be the intangible processes, activities, and so on. As the supporting assets, it will be the tangible, which it may be network, people, facilities, time, and so on. Okay, do you have any questions? Please, it's very important to make sure that you are understanding what we are saying now. This is very important. This is, my friends, this is our experience. This is experience from about 10 years in the market. Then if you don't understand this, you will not be able to implement the ISO. I don't care about this course, but I want you to, by the end of the day, of the course, I mean, that you will be able to implement the ISO and know how you can implement it. Of course, I will not tell you that you will go today and implement the ISO, but at least if you can understand 50% of this course, you make good achievement. Any questions? Okay. Also, we mentioned that we have to understand the business requirements, even if it's internal or external. What is the business requirements? Even it's external or internal. Why? Because when you will understand the external requirements for the business, you will understand the market needs. And market needs represent customers. And if you have customers, this means that you have contractual obligations. And with these customers, and the contractual obligations must be protected. Tell me, who will protect the contractual obligations of the company? Any answer?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Who will protect contractual obligations of the company?
They're lawyers.
From point of view of security? the ISMS. You remember when we said that the ISMS definition, it's protecting information and management and protecting informations. Then the contractual obligations, it will be form of a contract. It may be digital, it may be a paper or whatever. Then you have to keep this secure. This it can be in form of a paper, it can be stored on your PC or whatever. Then when we understand this, the point which I want you to understand. Now I want to understand the external requirements. Why? Because this, it will help me to understand the market needs. According to this, I will understand who is my customer. And when I have the customer, this I will have the contract obligations which I have to protect. And this is the customer's requirements. Also, I have to understand the organization stakeholders and their needs and expectations. It may be partner, it's customers, partners, vendors. Sometimes it can be legal authority. NCA, for example. NCA, for example, it can affect my ISMS implementation, because, for example, NCA, it will come, you have to be compliant with so and so. Then this means that I have to make the necessary change in my SMS, then it will be compatible with the requirement of the NCA. Okay. And we have, as we mentioned, we have to define the SMS requirement to achieve the stakeholder expectations. These and security requirements, they are sharing data with us. They may share their processes, business, personal information, and so on. And they are expecting that all this information, it will be protected and it will not be leaked from our organization. When we speak about the internal requirements of the business, internal requirements, first of all, management, it will tell you, please, I want to define what are the laws and regulations, be compliant. Number one, in Saudi Arabia, I would say, what are the law and regulation for NCA? Then I would say, NCA mandates that no data, it will be hosted outside Saudi Arabia on the cloud. If any data for government section and CNI, it will not be allowed to host it outside Saudi Arabia. Then, okay, this one of the important regulation. Then if I have a CRM application, as for example, Salesforce or whatever, all these applications, they are popular and they are very cost effective, but they are not complying with the NCA because they are hosted outside Saudi Arabia. Then this, I have to understand the laws and regulations, then I can choose the right solutions and right application. Also, for example, here, it should be, if I am working with online purchasing, or I have selling product online, then I have to use the credit card. If I am using credit card, I have to comply with PCI DSS. Otherwise, they will not allow me to utilize their services, and your customers will not be able to pay through the credit card. This means that I am losing a market share and I'm losing business. Or if I am, for example, a company who is dealing with, not a company, hospital or a dispensary, who is dealing with the patients, and I have their information, then I must comply with the HIPAA or HIPAA standard. If I have information, for example, as in my situation, in IT certificates, I have some information for European citizens. Then I have to follow the GDPR goals. Then this data, it will not be leaked out of my company by any way, and so on. When you have the internal requirements for the business. What do you require? I require to understand laws and regulation. This, it will be able to help you to choose what are the suitable applications, what are the suitable controls, and so on. Also, you have to define what are the required standards. Yani, now in XYZ company, they were working and everything is great. We are happy, we are doing business, but they won a tender and they found that they have to be certified against ISO 27001 to allow them to make this long-term relationship with the enterprise customer or this contract. Then you have to define what are the standards. What are these standards which will help them to comply with the requirements, and we will have a competitive edge, and this it will make a value for them in the market. Also, what are the internal policies? Of course, we are caring about the standards and requirements, but we have management, we are mandating some policies, and these policies we have to comply with it. You remember in the last annex in E18 when we explained the compliance, we said that we have 3 types of compliance. Compliance number 1 for the laws and regulations, compliance number 2 for the ISMS, that the procedures, organizations, policies are implemented as it's documented and as we are expecting. For example, we are saying that, yes, you have to formalize the, or you have to wipe the hard disks of the notebooks before selling these machines. If you are not doing this exercise in a proper way, this means that it can be considered as non-conformity. Then these are the internal policies which you have to comply with. Also, we have another thing here. What are the internal factors and external factors affecting an organization context? We have the organization structure. Can you give me an example how the organization structure can affect ISMS implementation? We explained about an example yesterday. I don't know if you can still remember or not. How the organization structure can affect the implementation of the ISMS?
Yes, Doctor. It can implement if the organization is structured. If you're going vertical, will increase how can I say صلاحيات المستخدم, and that might affect the organization structure.
Okay.
Also, maybe according to how the organization is built. For example, like if the organization built like in waterfall or any other methodology, also it might affect, because sometimes in waterfall you need to put everything in picture from the first day or before begin implementing.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. What you mentioned now, it's good, but the example which I want you to just remember, do you remember when I told you yesterday that CISO should not be reported into the IT manager? Then, if you are going to an organization and you find that the CISO or the security manager is reporting to the what we can say, the IT manager, you have to highlight this. This is non-conformity. We have to work on it. IT manager, he should not be the direct manager of security manager. Security manager, he should be reported to the CEO. Okay. We have another point which we have to understand from the internal factors. Who is the decision making? Who is decision maker? Why? Why do you want to know the decision maker in any organization to implement the ISO, my friends?
So you can report to him. If you can report him and ask a request for him, just if you need extra صلاحيات.
Okay.
So you can get, so if you know who is the decision making, you can report for him the strategy, anything you have in mind.
Okay. First of all, decision maker, he is the one who will develop the security policy, or he will develop the policies in general. This number one. Then we have to know very well that who will be able to sign the policy. Policy, it must be owned by the top management. Then he is the one who will develop the policy. Second, he is the one who will develop, or he will provide the resources for the ISO. Then I must understand who is the decision making. Then I will be able to work with them very close for all this information. The policy, the resources, rules and responsibilities, and all this stuff. Because you will spend some days with the decision maker, and after that you will have the project manager. Project manager, he does not have the permission to define rules and responsibilities, and he will not be able to assign it to anyone. But the top management, we will be able to do this exercise. And this is the reason why we are saying it's very important that to have them to be involved in the process of the decision making. Okay, why do you want to know the capabilities? Organization capabilities. How we organization capabilities, it will help you in the ISO 27001 implementation. Any answer?
You were asking question. You just stopped middle while you were talking.
No, I am afraid that there may be something wrong with the internet. I am asking, why do you want to know the capabilities of the organization?
No, we need to first to know what's the organization capabilities. If we know the organization capabilities, like their skills, their technologies, their process, their human ability, etc., we can do the decision making. We can build our strategy. We can set our goals for any organization.
Excellent. Right. Because if I am able to understand the capabilities, you will find that it will be reflected into the competence, right? You remember when we said that in clause number 7, we have something called support, and clause 7.2, it was competence. And we said that the competence is, it will be the skills for implementing the ISO, operated, so and so. Then when I understand the organization capabilities, this means that I may find the competence which I require. Some people who are familiar with policies, procedures, logging and monitoring, internal audit, management review, whatever, just name it, all the things which I require. Also, you have to understand the roles and responsibilities of the people. This, it will help you to very much to understand how the security roles and responsibilities and who is responsible for what, and to make sure that we have measurable accountability for these roles and responsibilities. Also, it's very important to understand the information flow in the company, how the organization information flow. For example, usually you will find that the top management, or it may be a CEO, this information, then it will go to mid-level managers, then it will go to the normal employees, and so on. Then this, it will help to understand how we can develop our awareness programs. This, it will help us to how to understand how to develop our awareness programs. Also, what are the previous audit results? If there is any previous audit results, let's have a look on it to understand how the ISMS were doing, and if these audits or findings were able to fix it or not. And finally, the internal factors which can affect the organization, it will be the partners, customers, vendors, stakeholders. Although these are external stakeholders, but again, we are affecting the internal organization. We are affecting the internal organization context, because according to their relationship and ISMS requirement, for example, you may need to develop new processes, you have to make changes for the ISMS and all this stuff, which is considered as internal factors for the organization. We have also some external factors which it will affect the organization context. These factors, of course, laws and regulations. In Saudi Arabia, we have NCA. It will have a big effect of our ISMS implementation. The market competition. Today we are working alone. Tomorrow you will find 10 companies we are compete with you, and you want to create some competitive edge. Then you will say, okay, we are providing you more applications with more security in design, so and so, or we are ISO 27001 certified, and so on. And finally, you can find some political environments which can affect your company organization context. The other issue which requirement considered the stakeholders and their ISMS requirements. And these stakeholders, can be internal stakeholders or external stakeholders. Internal stakeholders, board of directors, of course, main thing the board of directors require to protect the data or the organization data, comply with laws and regulation, meet level management, they are caring about the operations, and we want to provide stable and sustainable operations. Employees, we want to protect their information, we want to protect their rights, salaries. When all these internal stakeholders, we have interest and we have some requirements and expectations from the company and from its ISMS. Also, the stakeholders, for external stakeholders, for customers, for vendors, for partners, for authorities, shareholders, we have their expectations to protect their data, to protect their privacy, to protect their processes and information and their investment in your company. These are the important information which you can collect from the stakeholders and the ISS expectation and requirements from this implementation. Okay. In ISMS, or in context of the organization, we mentioned that we have understand the context of information, context of the organization, stakeholders, and what is ISMS objectives. This is very important. As I told you, my friends, in life, we are not doing anything just because we want to do it, but we are doing things for objective. I want to achieve some goals. You are spending small fortune for implementing ISMS and to certify it against ISO 27001. Why? What are your objectives from ISMS implementation? Here I try to make brainstorming and give you all the points which came to my mind, which I see it from the market. Protect organization assets, of course, makes sense. Compliance with laws and regulations. Due diligence proof. Do you know what is due diligence? Do you know what is due diligence?
No, can you just please explain it briefly?
Okay, we have two different expressions here, due diligence and due care. And again, if you make subscription with our LinkedIn site or Facebook site, you will find a poster. This poster, which I told you, it's one page slide. You will find the difference between due diligence and due care with some examples. Anyway, due diligence is the exercise which the organization do to protect their assets and information. When I have to call a vendor, I have to work with them, we have to implement ISMS, we have to create processes, we have to create policies and so on. This is what we call it due diligence. Due care, this an immediate action you have to take it. I found that there is non-conformity or problem or incident and I want to install a firewall. This is due care. There is an action, I have to take it immediately. But due diligence, this the actions which I am spending some time for planning and implementation. This is the main difference. Due diligence is very important. Why? You know, in GDPR, for example, GDPR, if you are not complying with GDPR, you have to pay 2 million euro, or 4% of the total revenue of the last year, whatever is higher. Then, suppose that you make your exercise in a proper way, and I planned my ISMS, and I create the necessary policies, procedures, standards, principles. I have security controls. I have everything in a proper way. But for some reasons, one of the applications, or maybe hardware or software, it has a bug, and the data, it was leaked due to this bug or whatever this problem. In this case, you will not pay anything. Why? Because you prove the due diligence. You prove the due diligence. I made the due diligence in a proper way. I implemented the ISMS. It's certified against ISO. I have procedures. I have everything. I am certified ISO. Then you prove the due diligence. In this case, you will say, okay, we can understand, then there is no need to pay for it. You know, in America, in USA, if you are not able to prove a proper due diligence for your organization, you are sentenced for prison. In some situation, it's not only fine, it will be only also prison for multiple years. Then you can spend few years in the prison because you are not able to prove your due diligence, or you did not do the due diligence in a proper way. Then my ISMS objective, it may be one of it, it will be due diligence. Come on, if you are telling me that I am not doing my exercise, I implement ISMS, ISO certified by ISMS, and I am doing well, and my certification is valid, then it will be a great proof for your due diligence. Also, your objectives, we are speaking about what are the organization objectives of the ISMS. We said protect organizations, compliance with laws and regulation, due diligence, stakeholders' confidence. This, it will help you in the market competitive edge. If you are saying I am ISO, now you will find in the boxes for the products, they will say we are ISO quality certified or ISO 27001 certified and so on, because this will add a value to you in the market. You can decrease the number of incidents and attacks, and also it can affect you can minimize the security incidents which affect your business and reputation. And just imagine an enterprise customer, he will come in the media and will say his network is penetrated, data it was stolen, so and so. This will affect his reputation and business. Next day you will find that his market what we can say الأسهم يعني الأسهم the value of الأسهم it decreased by 10% or 15% or whatever. This it will affect really the market and the value of his company due to security incident. Besides that, this security incident, it will cost him money and loss. He may lose some servers, applications, data, whatever. Also to improve the organization shape by rules, ISMS rules and responsibilities. Each one of the staff, internal stakeholders and even stakeholders, they understand exactly what is required from them. This it will be very helpful, and this it will provide a good image and provide more confidence for the company management and staff in the business. Also, we can increase the security awareness for the organization employees and stakeholders, because one of the main requirements of ISMS is the awareness. As you remember in clause number 7 for the resources, we mentioned in 7.3 the awareness. And if we create the awareness session, awareness programs, even its email, brochures, gathering, whatever, this will improve the organization employees awareness and the stakeholders give trust for the security department and the security operations, and make everything in as a business as efficient and stable. Okay, I think now it's almost 8 o'clock. I will stop here. We will implement all these conclusion or concluded information very quickly in the ISO 27001 implementation XYZ company. Tomorrow, inshallah, when we will start, I will go through the information conclusion again as a quick review. I will go through it very quickly, and we will start to make the implementation and the study to implement the ISO 27001 in XYZ company. Any questions?
So, Dr. Osama, this course is going to take more than 3 days.
This course, I'm afraid it will take 2 weeks. Yani we were planning to have it for 5 days. It will finalize on Saturday. But unfortunately, we are moving with very slow pace because there are good interactive sessions and discussions with all the trainees. Then we have to extend it for some other time. It may be another 2 or 3 days.
Mm-hmm. So okay, the plan is we're going to finish at Saturday.
The plan, it was finished at Saturday. You are right. But as you can see, today is Thursday, and even we did not finish module number 3.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I can see that. And by the way, is there like any mocking tests so we can try before we go into the real test? Any links?
Don't be hurried.
Just for us.
Don't be hurried. Don't be hurried. This is not an easy test. You have to prepare yourself in a proper way. This course, it will not be enough alone. You require some practical experience, and of course, as a student, you don't have this practical experience. Then we have to provide you this information in a form of other course. Besides, you will not be able to certify in the exam, because in the exam they require that you must have at least number of specific hours in practical experience. This practical experience, 300 hours for project management, ISMS project management, and these requirements, I cannot remember it right now. I will share this information with you in the last day and tell you exactly how we can do it. But you have to be very careful, because the ISO, it's not an easy exam. It's an open book exam, by the way, and it is the only one in IT field or security field which is open book. Their exam, although it's very simple, but it's very in Arabic we call it السهل الممتنع. يعني, you think that it's very easy, but we require some specific answer to show them that you have the practical experience. Don't worry about that. I want you to forget this for the current time. As I told you, I will help you to pass these exams and even to achieve the certificate. We will figure out how we can do it, but let's take it step by step. Now I want you to concentrate. Do you understand what did we explain or not? If you are understanding, you are doing your exercise in a proper way. The next step, let's finish this course or this workshop, and I'll tell you how you can prepare for it later.
Okay, thank you, Doctor.
It's all clear, Dr. Osama. Thank you.
You are most welcome. Okay, any other questions? Okay, thank you very much. I really appreciate. Today, inshallah, I will download the records and upload it into the YouTube channel. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.